Hello again. Right, I am now going to try to do some kind of non-metallic metal effect as I tried on the sword in the session, which could probably do with some more work, but I'm just going to do this for a relatively quick video. I have got 3 greys, of which are lead grey, which is quite cool because it's got a bit of a blue tint to it. Basalt grey, which is just a very middle grey, and white grey. 1, 2, 3. And the first thing I'm going to do is just paint the whole thing with the eyes on. Paint the whole thing with the basalt grey. Slightly thinned just to get a nice coverage for this one. I think I'm getting to the point where I do need new brushes actually. There we go. Nothing fancy, nothing difficult. Now what I'm going to do is look at it and think, the idea of non-metallic metal is to give the illusion of metal and some light reflecting on it. His sword is kind of pointing forward, so we're going to have some lights to the top, and we've got the flat back which will have some light on it, some little divots on that surface which will catch the light again. You can, the normal laws as it were of up and down or highlights and shadows don't apply. You can go a little bit silly to a degree on this. These swords are quite weird because they don't have a specific, or they've kind of got a raised shape across the edge. I could probably do another little coat when I zoom in that close. Right. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is, once that's dry, I won't do this one burn it this time, excuse me. And that dried quite nicely. What was I using? Was it that one? So I'm going to just take the lead grey in its purest form. I'm going to put that on near the hilt. I'll also run it up the front edge slightly. mix on my white grey with my basalt grey just to create a lighter, quite a bit lighter, but it will. This is going to use very similar principles to the shading and blending method that we did. When doing the horse, very tricky to get this to focus. I apologise for that. I seem to remember that happening in the session. So I'll put some little catch lights on those divots. On the front edge, I think I'm gonna. You can see I've made that kind of lighter edge going all the way down the front. You can imagine that this guy coming towards you and his sword glinting in the sky, terrifying his opponents. And with that glinting element in mind, I'm going to go to the pure white grey. And again, if anything, this is just sketching what I think might look cool at the end of the day. I'm not going to put the super bright light catching right at the tip. I'm going to do it midway down. But also catching just on that little point there. So at the moment it's and at the moment it's a little bit ugly, but we will hopefully. I'm going to put that just on the reverse side there, and I may add some more to it. Paintbrush, excuse me. Right, recovered. Right, I'm now going to take my base basalt grey and thin that right down. Well, not thin it right down, but thin it. And I'm now going to take that and paint from where it was kind of blend, if I can, from the basalt grey over into the mixed first highlight, going from the basalt grey. No, I lie, going from the basalt grey, white grey highlight mix and lifting the brush in the basalt grey mid-tone area. And again, painting out from my lead grey base over into the basalt grey area. Just trying to soften those edges. It's one of those things that might take a couple of goes. We are on quite a super zoom here when it gets in focus, which isn't always easy. So then I can take my basalt grey and white grey, take a bit of that mix and thin that down, and repeat the process on the lightest bit from where I painted it white. Like I say, this is one of those things where you can kind of go around in circles. So although that's probably not the best example of non-metallic metal in the world, and it gets a lot darker when I do that, and I'll probably do more of the basalt. It kind of gives the impression of light catching. They're probably nicest at that angle. With a glistening sword. It's very hard to paint on camera, so I'm probably not going to go overly crazy on it. It can work really effectively where you get those bright bits next to the darkest bits, but the sword is metal obviously for most of it, so you still need to have a good bit of grey. That's quite nice now as well. So I'm going to leave it at this point, 16 minutes. I'll probably just continue with trying to do some trying to get that darker lead grey that's got the nice blue tint to it just on the lower side and blend that in, and to follow some of the shape of that embossing on the edge of the sword if I can. But that would, it's like I say again, it's still really difficult to do on camera. Very difficult to do on camera, but hopefully that gives an impression what's possible, and it then becomes all careful blending. I can take the purest unadulterated white grey. White grey. Notice no pure white. You could use pure white at the very end, but I think it's still so on the very brightest, catchiest, lighty area even. It's the speed at which it goes from bright catching light into a darker metal is the trick. Okay, I think the next thing I'll do will be basing him, amongst other things. But I'm going to probably do a little bit more work on it off camera just because it's so hard to do on camera. But thank you again for your time. Catch you later.